How do we stop click fraud on our Google Ads accounts? Shout out to Ryan Pohl. Thank you so much for the request. And incidentally, if you have other topics that you want us to talk about, hit me up in the comments. And if I know the answer, I'll shoot a video. And if I don't, I'll pretend I don't have time. Or I'll go learn the answer. But Ryan, thank you. And I'm going to do my best to contend with this question. It's one that we have encountered in the past. And I can tell you that there's no clear answer. The first thing to be aware of is Google's aware of this. And they have pretty clear documentation on the fact that they're, have a multi-tiered approach. I've actually seen Google reimburse client accounts based off of what they thought might be fraudulent clicks. The most I've ever heard of came from a friendly agency, and they told us that one of their clients was reimbursed $1.5 million, which is nuts. And it's because Google was able to identify a collection of fraudulent clicks, I think, over the course of a year, which is really interesting. That hints at like an algo change or sort of retroactive application of data analysis or whatever. So Google is definitely looking into this. According to them, they are working to kind of subvert non-intent based clicks. So if somebody's clicking on your ads multiple times and not taking the actions that would lend Google to believe that they're a real customer, then in theory Google's not going to show your ad. Now, is all of that true? I don't know. Clicksys says that 1 in 5 clicks is fraudulent. I don't think that's true either, because it doesn't make sense from a conversion metrics standpoint. If you actually look at your conversion ratios, they tend to kind of align with what you'd expect to see from, in how many interested prospects end up filling out a form. My soft opinion, in a well-optimized campaign. So that 1 in 5 number feels aggressive. But if you're not going to rely solely on Google, if you're really concerned about click fraud for your campaign specifically, then I think it's worth looking at a SaaS product. And that's maybe the point that I'd like to hit the hardest in this video is I don't know that I would go off and pay for click fraud monitoring services as a preventative measure, just because it's not just about the cost, it's also about the time that it takes to manage that. It's a whole other layer of data that you need to look at. But if it's something that you know is happening or you feel very strongly is happening, then it's worth looking at. I'll show you the three software applications that I've identified as potentially viable. Clicksys is I think the most popular. At least I see their ads more than any else, and they're also the only ones that I've worked with personally. You can see everybody's pricing is basically the exact same, by the way. So $75 a month. If you stop one click, depending on your industry, like I can pay $75 a click, so this could potentially end up being worth it for me. The issue you'll run into is it's all based on IP address identification. And let me see that there's an image of their dashboard here. So what happens is they're just identifying all of the clicks that are coming through. You're looking for multiple clicks from a region, and then deciding whether or not you're going to block that click. And when you block this prospect, you're just blocking their IP address. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because that's a pretty easy thing to get around. I mean, it's not difficult to roll IP, use a proxy, whatever. So instantly the front line of defense is one that if anybody really wanted to play the attack you game, I just feel like they'd be able to get around this. Now it's nice to just know that it's happening, and also maybe to make it a little bit more difficult for them. And if they're not super sophisticated technologically speaking, then maybe you'll actually stop them. Some of the other tools, like where your fraud is coming from, keyword analysis, that type of thing, that could be helpful because it sort of begins to let you back into strategies to be a little bit more preventative. Fraudulent devices, again, and this isn't going to be, I think, 100% trackable, especially with some of the new changes that are being made. I love that they have a GDN integration. I actually haven't seen this. I haven't used Clicksys. It's been at least 2 years, so some of this is relatively new. But if you're interested in click fraud detection, they're absolutely worth demoing. I don't know if they have a trial, but check them out. The other one that's I think pretty popular is ClickGuard. Pricing is the same. Again, I actually don't like ClickGuard's pricing because they do this thing that, like, all these numbers are pretty close to the same. And in my mind, it's you're dealing with entrepreneurs. Like, have a flat fee. If you want to have a 2-tier situation, great. But if this were my client, I would tell them that they're diluting the conversion event right now. I just don't think that this is very well canvassed. But, from a feature perspective, I think they're just as robust as Clicksys. They have an agency model, which is pretty cool. And they do have some features that Clicksys doesn't have, at least so they say. I've never used them. Worth looking into. They also have a low barrier to entry mark. PPC Protect is one I'm giving them an honorable mention specifically because they just had a really epic value bomb with a list of exclude accounts for GDN that I was just so impressed by. So I wanted to make sure that I included them, and they're also last on my list because I sort of want to highlight them maybe more than the others. I've never used them, which is unfair for me to do. So I have used Clicksys, and it was fine. It took some time. You know, it basically just walks through, shows you all the IPs where your clicks are coming from, and you have to exclude yourself. So you know, this whole like AI-driven algorithmic pitch, I don't know that I buy from any of these companies, but I've never used PPC Protect, so you know, it's worth checking out and seeing how their product actually functions, and they've got a how it works section here. Yeah, and I think that's about as much as I want to say because I'm about to start to overstep my bounds, you know, as far as the trusted expert could be concerned. I do think that in some instances it's the cost of doing business, sadly. I also think that it's probably happening less than you may think it does. I don't know that, you know, many people are going to have the patience to walk through that process on an ongoing scale. So hopefully, you know, the world is a better place than we all may assume it to be sometimes, and we're not going to run into that many issues. But check it out. If you've used one of these softwares and you have feedback for me, please hit me in the comments. I'd be really interested in understanding what experience you've had, and if there's more to the feature set than I know, that would be helpful to have too. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.